Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Esoterica and our long-running series, the Unported playlist, where I take a look at some of my favorite arcade games of all time that never got home ports. And today we're looking at one of the favorites of those favorites, the Ocean Hunter, released by Sega on the Model 3 platform. Before we get too far involved and talk about the game, if you could do me a huge favor, go down below, hit like and subscribe, and ring that notification bell. And if you feel so inclined and want to support the channel, we have a Patreon link down there as well. But the Ocean Hunter feels wholly unique to me as far as Sega arcade games are concerned. And that's not to say that it's different as how the game plays. It's a standard light gun shooter with an XY coordinate controller, but all the characters, the visuals, the colorful nature, and the fact that you're fighting giant sea creatures and fish just makes it feel like something that Sega's never done before. And you will see those little black bars go away. Supermodel does support 16:9 visuals. It will force the game to show you more than it's supposed to, but because the designers of the game put those black bars in to give a fake widescreen effect on a 4:3 monitor, you will see them when you're playing the game. I don't mind it that much, but if you want to play it in 4:3, you don't really have to worry about it too much at all. But this game is just completely unique as far as what Sega was giving us, and I love everything about it. The soundtrack is amazing, the visuals for the Model 3 always look great, and just the fact that you're fighting a gigantic shark that's trying to kill you, it kind of feels like Jaws the game brought to life. And the fact that you're underwater and how the camera slowly moves left and right to give you that kind of weight of being submerged, it just feels like a really fun game that just came out of left field for Sega. There's no zombies in this, etc., etc. It just lives on its own merits, and it's one of those games that I don't hear talked that much about compared to the rest of Sega's light gun catalog, but it's something that I think is really Sega at the top of their game as far as these games are concerned. And you have to fight this big, what I think is a sturgeon. If you're a huge fish fan, leave me a comment below and tell me what I just shot, because I'm not sure. I don't know a lot about fish except they live underwater. But how all the different things float, you shoot a table and it starts to slowly float up because it has that buoyancy to it. There's just a lot of touches in this game that really make it feel special and like something that Sega spent a lot of time at. And now we're going to fight the Kraken. And I love the announcer's voice. A lot of times these Japanese voiceovers just sound absolutely terrible, but whoever did the narration for this game sounds like they're a David Attenborough clone. It just sounds so dramatic and like it fits the game so well that you listen to something like The House of the Dead and the voiceovers are terrible, they're laughable. This game does not have any of that. The only person who speaks sounds like they've been doing narration for documentary nature films their entire life. And I love that about the game. It just feels like it fits. And now that we have beaten the Kraken, we're going to move on to the next stage. And we're basically going through the 7 deadly seas. And each level is completely different. Granted, they're all underwater, but you have different enemies, you have different bosses, and they don't really recycle a lot during the gameplay of this game. So from start to finish, you're always seeing something new, you're always seeing something unique. So, when you get to 2/3 through the game, you don't feel like I've been playing the same thing over and over again. And with a lot of arcade games, sometimes I do get a little bit lack of attention or bored towards the back third of the game before the climax happens. But in the Ocean Hunter, I definitely never have that issue. And I do love the fact that you have these mid-bosses as well. They're not as hard as the final boss of the stage, but it gives you a whole nother roster of bosses to fight because pretty much every stage has one. And Model 3 did a great job with their visual effects. Every game is very colorful, and this game is no different. You have these little purple stars floating through the water, and everything is just giving you this amazing look and feel. And to me, these graphics still hold up because the Model 3 felt so far ahead of its time compared to what all the other contemporary arcade platforms are doing back then, that I think this game is still amazing today. And I would love to have a remake of this on like a VR headset, like PlayStation VR, Oculus Rift, something like that, because unlike a lot of the other games that seem to have licensing issues, clearly there's no license here. This is a wholly original intellectual property made by Sega, so the only thing that's stopping them from porting this to modern consoles is the fact that they don't think people want it. Maybe one day they'll change their mind because Sega does seem to be getting better at re-releasing some of their old games, and this is high on my list of things that I would love to see come home. What I'll let you do now is I'm going to let you watch the next stage without me talking because the soundtracks and sound effects are great, and I'll be back in just about a minute to talk more about the Ocean Hunter. But if you ever fall into piranha-infested waters, expect to be a floating skeleton. But I'll be right back. Man, if I had to guess at the pronunciation of the boss's name, I would be so wrong. But I'll listen to that guy tell me different fish names all day long because I'm just so surprised that the narrator in this game isn't classically Japanese arcade game bad, and I just love that. But each boss fight is wholly unique in its own way, and they last pretty long. And unlike some arcade games where I feel like the boss fight drags a little bit, I enjoy the length of all of these because each boss is unique and individual in their own right. And on this particular one, we're going to jump up onto this ruin here, and we're actually fighting for the first and only time on ground. And I just like that they've considered what each boss battle is going to be like. They have their different mechanics, they have completely different looks, and each one feels unique enough that you're going to enjoy it. And you get to shoot a little treasure chest there, and they are throughout the game all over the place. Some are really easy to hit, some are really hard to find, and all it really does is increase your score. You're not going to get really any power-ups or extra lives from them, but I like that it just gives you an extra layer onto the game. And now that we've beaten whatever that name was, I'm not even going to attempt a pronunciation, we're moving on to the next stage, which is an Arctic stage underwater. And you get these really nice kind of pastel blue looking colors, and everything again just feels and looks completely different. You have these lampreys or suckerfish that are coming out of that poor, I think, beluga whale who's been eaten into. So the game does have a little bit of gore to it, but it's fish based, so it's not something that's going to freak you out too much if you're prone to not liking violent games. Although this guy here is definitely getting lampreyed to death, but we're able to rescue him and get that power up. And I love all the Model 3 games. I think it was probably Sega's most impressive arcade platform because it was the most unique and most one-off. The Naomi is great, but it is just basically a souped-up Dreamcast, where Model 2 and Model 3 were these crazy original designs done by people like Lockheed Martin, you know, the company that makes fighter jets and weapons for the military. They also moonlighted and made arcade boards and hardware for Sega. And I just love that kind of weird, crossover. The military company happens to make arcade hardware as well. It's strange and it's unique and it's just really fun. And I miss that era of arcade games where the hardware was just so beyond what you would see in your home that when you walked into an arcade you couldn't help but think, oh man, am I going to be playing this on my TV in 5 years? Because when I saw the Model 3 games in arcades, that's what I was thinking. But if you've never played the Ocean Hunter, one, I wouldn't be surprised because it is one of the lesser talked about Sega arcade games, and I haven't seen one in arcade since like 2008. I actually saw one outside of a movie theater in Chicago, and I played it from start to finish, costing maybe like $10, but I hadn't seen one since the 90s, like 98, 99, and I absolutely wanted to play it. And now we're fighting this gigantic Medusa jellyfish, and she doesn't really attack. I'm assuming it's a she. It's called Medusa, but she does send her little Medusa babies out to try to get you. But I can't recommend this game enough. It's just fun and unique and weird and strange and something that you don't really see anymore, even from Sega. Their light gun output, they still make games, Scarlet Dawn, that hasn't unfortunately been ported home yet. I wish I could get a capture of that for the Unported playlist, but I have to find an arcade willing to let me hook up an HDMI cable into their cabinet, and I'm not finding any luck with that, especially during a pandemic. But the Supermodel emulator, as I've said many times on the channel, does an excellent job of playing these games. It's running at full 60 frames a second, and I'm playing with a mouse, and it works perfectly fine. But if you've ever seen the game before, if you played it, leave me a comment. If you have any questions, leave them down below. But if you could do me a huge favor, go down below, hit like and subscribe, and ring that notification bell. It takes a lot of time, energy, and effort to make these videos, and I really appreciate your guys' support. And if you have any other recommendations of games to cover on this particular series that I haven't before, I also love hearing what you think would be good to show in the future, because I plan on making these Unported arcade game videos as long as I can keep coming up with good Unported arcade games to play. But short of that, we will be back Sunday with another episode in the Unported playlist, and we will have videos on Tuesday and Friday in our main series as well. But thanks so much for watching. We hope you're having a great weekend. Enjoy the rest of it, and we'll see you next time. And we almost have this gigantic crab down. Bye-bye.